Hey, welcome to A Real Point of View. I'm your host, Greg Morgan, and I'm always grateful to have a wonderful set of film critics with me. And tonight I've got the movie maven herself, Miss Karen D, and Mr. Steve C, who is what kind of critic are you, Steve?
I don't pick bad movies.
And there you got it, ladies and gentlemen. He doesn't pick bad movies.
Hey, hey, I need a tagline.
Well,
Karen is, she doesn't pick the same movies as Steve all the time.
Oh,
that's true.
ouch. Well, I never.
Whatever.
Whatever.
We're
Never mind.
doing the inside jokes, ladies and gentlemen, so we apologize. Well, thanks for joining us here on The Real Point of View. Tonight we're going to talk about undercover cops. I know with all the crazy things that are going on in the world, we kind of sometimes get away from and forget that there are people out there risking their lives to try to keep things on our streets safe, keep our children out of harm's way, and just try to do the best they can because in their heart of hearts, they know they're doing what they can do to try to keep us all safe, doing that protect and serve thing. But they're doing it in a slightly different way than some of their peers, in that they're doing it undercover, which makes it even that much more dangerous, that much more risky for them and even their families. So I wanted to try to give some type of homage, I guess, to the people in blue who are out there to protect and serve, but doing it under the guise of different characters, different people, different characters, and in many cases getting kind of drawn into that situation where the people that they're actually trying to protect us against get to them so emotionally that they too, in some cases, kind of turn the blind's eye and kind of revert into that world, that deep world of undercover work that gets them in trouble, even with their own colleagues. So this is one of those situations where I think we've had a lot of really good movies that embrace the undercover ideology and the undercover theme. So tonight we're going to just try to introduce you to some of those films if we can. So again, we've got Karen and Steve here to kind of help that process. And so I'm going to start with a movie that just came out recent. Well, not that recent. Give me a second here. I'm going to try to do that. There's a movie out there with The Rock, or otherwise known as his new persona in acting with his real name, Dwayne Johnson. And it's a movie called Snitch. Now, here's a situation where undercover takes an even more intense realm and intense role where someone has to go undercover when you're a police officer or a DEA agent or ATF. You know, you're kind of concentrated into the underworld life of these different criminals and criminal element. And so, yeah, that's, something that we have come to know to be something that occurs all the time, to try to cut down these cartels or cut down these street gangs in different cities across the United States. But what happens when your son is in so deep and your son gets put into a situation, you're a parent and has a normal job, normal situation, and you've got to do everything you can to try to save your son, to save your child. So in this case, we've got a movie called Snitch. And this is where Dwayne Johnson's character goes undercover to actually save his son. So he's not a police person. And yet he does what he can to try to get his son into safety. The ultimate sacrifice of a parent is to protect their child. But how do you protect their child if they're mixed up in a situation that puts their life in danger and you don't know what your recourse is going to be? So I like this movie. This is a pretty decent movie. And I like Dwayne Johnson's character in the film. And I like the kind of overall story of the film. So this, for me, would be one I would suggest to everybody to watch. So what about you, Karen? What about you, Steve? You guys got some films out there to get us started that you think the audience would be remiss to miss?
Well, I'll jump in with one because I'm not a fan of this man's movies, but this movie I really liked, and the director of this movie actually got an Academy Award, and the Academy Award actually had eluded him until this movie came about. And the movie's called The Departed. It's directed by Martin Scorsese. And I just think I'm not a Martin Scorsese fan for lots of reasons that I won't get into here at this point in time. But I think this movie, Martin Scorsese really does well. I mean, he picked the right person to play the undercover cop. It's about the infiltration of an Irish gang in South Boston, and Leonardo DiCaprio plays the young cop who is trying to infiltrate the gang. Mm-hmm. And who else is in this movie?
Oh, are you kidding?
Very many people. Matt Damon, Jack Nicholson, Mark Wahlberg.
I was going to say, like everybody? Isn't everybody?
Yeah, pretty much everybody. Martin Sheen was awesome for the small amount. He didn't have that big a role, but he was awesome. Ray Winstone, who I've always loved his work. Anthony Anderson was in this movie. Yeah, so pretty much everybody. I mean, everybody who was working in Hollywood got a part in this movie, I guess. But
a lot of the different people that you mentioned have actually been nominated for Academy Awards, so it's like a plethora of almost, if not have an Oscar, are nominated for an Oscar. That's I mean, what kind of budget did you have for that film?
Oh, huge.
Ridiculous.
Only huge. But just very well acted. And I just saw this movie recently, and I'd forgotten how good it was. And I don't know what made me watch it. I think it was Leonardo DiCaprio. He's so engaging because, I mean, he's like this real tough guy. He's this cop, and he's so undercover in this movie that you really forget that he's actually a cop, trying to get people arrested. You really feel, I mean, because he's so tough, and he's like all in on the beating up of the people and cracking heads and, taking dope. And I mean, he does everything. I mean, he was way deep undercover. And at the same time that he, is portraying all this, he also portrays this really engaging sort of vulnerability that you really feel for him. You really root for him. You want him to win, even if you forget that he's the good guy. If he's the good guy playing a bad guy, and you think he's the bad guy, you still root for him. So really, really well done. I think Martin Scorsese did an excellent job of directing this movie. Mark Wahlberg was really intriguing as like the cop who's just smells corruption. He wants to get to the bottom of it, and he's the one who will go to the ends of the earth to find out exactly what's going on, because Leonardo DiCaprio's character is not only dealing with the gangs in the Irish gang in South Boston, he's also dealing with corruption in the police department. Mm-hmm. So it's like the knives are out no matter which way you turn. And so he's trying to survive, and he's running from the cops, from his own colleague cops at one point, and the gang at the same time. So really well done movie. It's one of the best movies about undercover cops that's out there, I think.
I agree. I thought this was a fine film, and Jack Nicholson at his best, just by far.
He was twitchy.
Yeah. I mean,
it's really on cocaine.
Yeah. Exactly.
You can't say enough about this film. It's a great one. What are you gonna say, Steve? Sorry.
I said it's almost like he was.
It's almost like he was on cocaine. I know.
Yeah, like real twitchy, real.
He was extremely twitchy
in the moment.
Yes.
But he's always done a great job playing characters that really are in the moment.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
And Matt Damon. I mean, I used to be a Matt Damon fan, and I've stopped being a Matt Damon fan for reasons that I won't go into at this time. But he was really engaging, I think, and not in a good way, but just engaging because he played a really ethically ambiguous character, even though he was a cop. And I think Matt Damon as an actor kind of walked that line very neatly, so you weren't, I mean, you knew he was the good guy, but you weren't really sure that he was the good guy because he wasn't always acting like the good guy. And yeah, so just a lot to enjoy here, just from a pure acting standpoint.
Yeah, I agree.
That's true. I liked the speaking on The Departed. I actually like the way they. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Sure can.
Okay, I actually like the way they portrayed Matt Damon and Leonardo DiCaprio kind of in different. Like Leo's a cop trying to be a criminal, but he's very direct and very motivated to get the job done and to do what he's doing, and he's moving forward without really looking behind him or anything. And Matt Damon, it seems, is always looking over his shoulder. He's always looking for that guy that's going to catch him or that's going to break it wide open for him. Mm-hmm. And you could really
he's also looking to move up in the department, too. He's
exactly.
looking for any way he can to move up into the department.
But he's also looking behind him because he feels like somebody's about to catch him at so many different moments of the movie, where DiCaprio is just straightforward and I'm going to finish the job and there's nothing standing in my way to getting through this, my objective.
Right.
Yeah, but also with Matt Damon's character, not just move up in the department, but move up into the criminal element as well. He's trying to cater to two different masters, and that's why he's looking over his shoulder, because he's lost himself. He doesn't know which way to truly turn, and yet as he gets more and more enamored with the upward mobility in both situations, he loses himself so much that now he's off guard, and it's when he takes his guard down, things change for him. So yeah, I agree with that. That's a great dynamic between especially the three characters on the screen right now.
I mean, of between Matt Damon and Leonardo DiCaprio's characters, Leonardo DiCaprio played the more ethically straightforward, far more ethically straightforward character, because even though he was a cop trying to be a criminal, and even though he was doing everything he could to become part of this gang, he also never took his eye off the ball. He knew what the goal was, which was to get the bad guys. Mm-hmm. Matt Damon played a far more ethically ambiguous character, although he was never undercover.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, well, yeah. The ending was the best. The ending
was awesome, which we're not going to talk about, but
not going to do any spoilers or anything, but watching the movie the first time, never saw that coming.
You never saw that coming. You never did. And I think that's what won Martin Scorsese the Academy Award, frankly, was that ending.
That very easily could be.
Very good movie. So what about you, Steve? What movie out there do you have that can give our audience watching that thrill when they give it a shot?
I'm going with Deep Cover. It's
Oh,
1992. Lawrence Fishburne. The last time he was credited with being called Larry. Yeah, actually Larry Fishburne. This is the last movie. Also, Jeff Goldblum's in it. The It was directed by Bill Duke, who's a veteran actor, has been around a
oh,
long
awesome
time.
director.
And it's really a Lawrence Fishburne, kind of like in The Departed, how Leonardo DiCaprio's character kind of gets shoestringed into going undercover and would be better fit for being undercover because of all the traits he has, because of the way he acts and the background that he has. Lawrence Fishburne gets the exact same treatment in this movie because when he was a kid, his dad was a drug addicted, an alcoholic who ended up dying in a liquor store robbery. And he pledged to himself that he wasn't going to be that guy, that he wasn't going to grow up and be into his dad. And 20 years later, now police officer, and is being recruited by the DEA to go undercover and be a guy, be a drug guy. So it kind of holds a lot of comparison to The Departed in that department.
Agreed.
So, yeah, just based on looks and just based on everything, he does a good job going undercover. Really gets in with everyone. He ends up working for the, of course, during the time he's Cleveland, lives in Cincinnati. In order to go undercover, he actually went out to L.A., an area he really hasn't ever been, and he's got to pretend to be a drug guy out there. Starts stealing cocaine. He poses as a man named John Hull. His actual name is Russell Stevens Jr. And it basically goes from there. He gets deeper undercover, really climbs the ladder with the drug import business, which is actually run by Anton Gelagos, I believe that's the way you'd say his name, and his father, a South American politician who's making sure that the drugs get across the border and everything. Of course, it goes with everything. He gets arrested by these narcotic cops they're also crooked cops, so they've been trying to they're trying to work deals with him. He ends up working for fronts that are money laundering and just, all the criminal elements that you really expect to see in the movie. Jeff Goldblum plays a cop that is not really on the up and up, but really sees a lot in Fishburne's character and kind of works with him. Toward the end to bring these people to justice. And at the end, they go to, at the end, the DEA is trying to get him to fess up and confess to all these stories and crimes and everything that went on. And the DEA, turns out, is also crooked. He's also doing... he's working with the South American politician to bring the drugs into this country. And Lawrence Fishburne's character at the end actually brings video evidence to his court case, which is going to basically get him and his girl arrested if he doesn't provide the evidence and everything. So he brings the video, incriminates the DEA agent and the South American politician. And since their careers are over, come find out they actually had $11 million of money that he stole as an undercover cop working with all these drug dealers, and he's just really trying to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, he gets himself in, he gets out, he's able to save the role and be the hero and, become a cop again and everything that he wants to be and not be like his father, but he still stole $11 million from some very bad people.
And that in itself is a very hard thing to do and still maintain your ethics, your soul. Did he sell? Yeah. He save everything else but sell his soul, But it's a really good movie. I enjoy that movie too. It's one of the better movies out there.
It's probably one of the better movies that Lawrence
Larry
Fishburne, Larry
Fishburne.
Lawrence, Larry, is it Larry now? Lawrence?
We'll go L.
It was
Bird,
Larry.
L. Fishburne.
L. Fishburne was in. I remember when Deep Cover came out, and I remember going to the movies to see it, and I really, really liked it. And it was very, I mean, as a thriller, I think it did a really good job. It was very suspenseful, and you didn't quite know what was going to happen. And I've always loved Jeff Goldblum because he's such a fine actor, and he's also really good without showing you how good he is. I mean, there's some actors that really get credit for being great actors, and you see them working really, really hard at acting.
Uh-huh.
And Jeff Goldblum, to me, he just makes it look easy. He just kind of inhabits his characters, and you never quite know what his character is going to do, not because some script told him to be unpredictable, but because he finds those sorts of things, those human things in the character, that because all people, at the end of the day, people really are unpredictable. That's why, we're endless sources of fascination for each other as a race. It's because we don't quite know what we're all going to do. We don't know what we're going to say, next. Right. We don't have people writing scripts for us, unfortunately, which is a problem that I have. I could definitely use some better writers in my life. But,
yeah, true that. We go through all the craziness in our everyday lives. A script writer, good director.
So I like the way that he just humanizes these characters that are two-dimensional on the page. He makes them three-dimensional. So I've always liked that about Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, indeed. So I'm looking at another situation here. Give me a moment. I found a film that I really, really like, and I want to try to bring up the file. So my wife and I this is a few years ago, decided, okay, we wanted to, get a film before streaming became so popular, trying to find a film that we could sink our teeth into and would be thrilling. And we started watching some B movies. Consider B movies. And you have a lot of talented actors and actresses out there who can't necessarily get into that A-frame movie, and all the A-frame movies are the ones that are highly publicized, highly funded, on and on and on. So this is that next level of funding and next level exposure. And you'd be surprised how some of the exposure that you get in these B movies helps elevate you to that A movie status, that A-list status. And this is an actor in this particular film who became one of my favorite actors because of that. And it really catapulted him into better funded films. And sadly, at a point where things were really on its pinnacle, an unfortunate situation ended all of that. So the actor that I'm talking about is Paul Walker. And Paul Walker, to me, when I first saw him in one of those B movies, which I can't think of the name of the movie now, but ironically, L. Fishburne was in it. It was a, kind of an off-kilter movie, but you could tell he had a lot of promise and a lot of good acting chops even then. And then he did another movie with, I can't think of her first name. Last name is Alba.
Jessica Alba. And it was another thriller type film that looked like it was, anchoring him, or not saying anchoring him, but starting to push him toward that better frame of film. And that was a good film. It's something deep is in that name of that film too. But the movie that he was in with Gloria Fishburne was the Death and Life of Bobby Z.
Oh Lord!
Not a heavily populated film that a lot of people knew anything about.
Straight to Netflix.
But I think a movie that started getting noticed a little bit was a movie called Into the Blue, and that's the one he did with Jessica Alba. But the movie that I wanted to talk about here is, since we're talking about undercover cops here, the movie that I saw and my wife and I just got by accident. It just read well on the back of the DVD cover at the time, and so we said, okay, let's just take it, listen, let's watch it. Oh my God, we're sitting there watching this, and in the first, I don't know, 15 minutes of the film, my wife says, "Can you pause that film for me?" I'm like, "What?" She said, "Pause it." I go, okay. I pause the film. And I go, "What?" She goes, "I just have to get. I have to breathe. Okay, gotta breathe because this is really going like really fast, and this is all this stuff is happening, and it's like, and I'm sitting there like, I know. It's like we had to get up and take a break. The movie had only been going maybe 10, 15 minutes. We had to get a break because it was going from one situation to the next situation to the next situation, and it did not stop for the whole film.
You know what?
And what's the name of this?
Like that style.
I do too. And the name of this film is Running Scared.
Oh, that film. That's right.
Yeah, it's a really good film. Actually, you probably like this one, Karen, because it stars one of your favorite actors, actually, in Chaz Palminteri.
Yep, I do like Chaz Palminteri.
And Paul Walker, and the person who played Paul Walker's wife in the film, Vera Farmiga. I always say her name wrong. Farmiga. Farmiga. Very, very, very good actress. She's in a lot of A-list films. And
wasn't she in Taken?
Did she play the wife? No, I don't
I
think
thought
she
No,
did.
that's Famke Jensen.
No.
Oh, you're right.
You know what movie she's in? She's in the movie with good grief, can I think his name? The guy who does the Ocean 11 movies.
Well, that's either Matt Damon or Brad
George
Pitt.
Clooney, Matt Damon.
No, George Clooney. She's in a George Clooney film where he's a pilot, and
Up in the Air.
she's in that movie. And then she also plays the love interest of anyway, she's in a lot of feature films, and much more. In fact, she's on a TV series now that's from Psycho, the Bates Motel.
Mm-hmm.
She's the main, one of the main characters in that film.
She's not the mom.
She's the mom.
She is the mom?
Yeah, she's the mom. And she's also in the movie I was thinking about she was in is with Robert Duvall. She's in The Judge.
Oh, that was a good movie.
She plays Robert Downey Jr.'s love interest in that film. So really, really good actress. But not to going back to the film itself more directly, this is a film where we have a guy who basically this lower ranked thug he's entrusted with disposing of, like, whenever they do a crime with guns and they're shooting the guns or they shoot somebody, he's in charge of like disposing of the guns. And one situation comes where a gun is actually used in killing of a police officer, and he's got to try to. They give him this gun to dispose of. Well, I don't want to give the total essence of the film away, but this gun is what drives the film. It goes through so many different hands, quite by accident, where he hides these guns, and he has it in place actually in his home, and his small child, well, not too small, but his preteen son and friend, they find this gun. And from there on, it's just a roller coaster ride. And you get on this ride, and you never get off this ride throughout the whole film. And there are certain things in the film that seem like they're just over the top, but you are so vested in this film by then that over the top is just more exciting to you. And it goes all the way to the very end of this film. I think the last maybe minute of this film, you get to relax. Last minute of this film, you get to relax. And then it's over. And your heart stops beating. You've gone like 1,000,000 miles an hour. And it's just that film. This is like one of the perfect undercover films. And I really like this film. I've seen this film twice. And I'm going to see it again soon. But, you can't watch it a lot or, often because you just you're going through that ride, you're so exhausted by the end of the movie. So, you know, if you've seen it once, you know if you're going to see it again, you're going to be exhausted. So you got to kind of, you know, make sure you got the comfy chair. You got to make sure you have your popcorn on the side. Make sure you have your goobers and your, you know, Snickers, whatever you're going to do, whatever you like. Make sure it's all sitting there, and make sure you got a porta potty, because you're going to be just running all over you, and you don't want to miss anything. So you got to have something that's close to the TV. So you can't run to the bathroom, that's too far. So you put the porta potty right next to you, so that you can, you know, get everything going.
Okay, we're going down a dark road. I need to walk it back.
get your Yahoo Pop, and you just say intravenously.
Yeah, we need to walk away from this one.
You mean like
or caffeine, whatever's gonna, you know, so that you're ready for this film. But yeah, Running Scared. I think everybody should watch this film.
It sounds like the director did a good job of, if you think you know where the movie's going, or if you think you have a direction, which a lot of movies do now. It's like you're all ready for the next scene. Once you get there, he immediately jumps to something else and tries to stay ahead of you. And that's really an unseen directing quality and writing quality these days.
Yeah. Now, if you can see by the facial expression here on Paul Walker's face, you know how intense this movie gets.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And that's like the first 5 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. That's a little later in the film, but you get it. He goes through a lot in this movie, and to me, this is his coming out film. I think he did such a good job in this film. I think it propelled him and gave him a lot more opportunity in Hollywood, but just a sad condiments to such a short career, just because of his mortality. But I think this was a guy who was really, really on the rise, and I thought he was going to continue to do so. But yeah, this is that movie that I think got him all those Fast and Furious films.
Which, speaking of Paul Walker and Undercover Cops, the first Fast and Furious movie was him being undercover.
Yeah, see, there you go.
And being undercover, invading Vin Diesel, Tyranno, I can't think of his name. I think that's the character's name. But his operation to try to figure out who's robbing these semis rolling down the road.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, definitely a good film for him. Definitely a good film in general, and everybody playing their part to a T. Even the younger people in the film did a really good job, I thought. I enjoyed this movie. It's definitely a ride. So any other films out there, you guys, that will give our viewing audience a thrill a minute? And as you told me, Steve, it doesn't have to be so dramatic. It could be somewhat melodramatic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have one.
Or even comedic. Go ahead, Karen.
I have one. There's no comedy in this movie at all. It's called Training Day.
Oh.
From 2001, starring, guess who? Denzel. John Paul Getty and Denzel. Mostly just Denzel. Yes, Ethan Hawke. And Scott Glenn and Tom Berenger.
Oh, I love Scott Glenn, too.
Really good people in this cast. You're much more likely to get a part if you're actually a guy. You know, there you go. Dr. Dre was in this movie, and so was Snoop Dogg and Macy Gray. How about that? Wow. And Eva Mendes. Wow. Raymond Cruz had a small part as a sniper. So good people. I love Raymond Cruz. I just think he's awesome. But this is a tour de force. And yes, this movie will always be famous as the one for which Denzel Washington finally won his Best Actor Oscar. In my personal opinion, he should have won it about 10 years earlier for Malcolm X, and he was robbed that year. But he won it for a movie that was good, but not nearly as good as Malcolm X was. I think not nearly as complex and textured as Malcolm X was. And the character in which he played, I think he got that award not because he necessarily played such an incredibly complex person. Alonzo Harris, Detective Alonzo Harris, who he plays in this movie, wasn't that complex at all. I mean, he was an alpha male who had his eye on what he wanted, which was world domination. And there's nothing, it may be scary, it may be vicious, but there's nothing at all complex about that. He played, in my opinion, he played a far more complex, multi-layered, multi-dimensional character when he played Malcolm X. So why did he win the Academy Award for this movie? In my opinion, it's because Denzel Washington sort of had like this good guy, like playing the good guy or the hero or the leading man sort of complex with regard to a lot of movie roles. And he was almost never, he really wasn't, he was almost never the bad guy. Now, a notable exception to that was A Soldier Story from the 1980s with the late Howard Rollins starring in it, and the late Adolph Caesar, based on a play. It wasn't August Wilson. I can't remember. It was not. I can't remember who wrote the play. But anyway, it was the movie based on the play. And so in that movie, yeah, Denzel Washington was not playing the best guy. But other than that, it's kind of like, leading man, good guy stuff. And when A Soldier Story came out, and when he was in that movie, he was still like trying to get to stardom. He wasn't an actual name star in Soldier Story. He was just one of like those go-to guys that you help round out the cast. Howard Rollins was the star power for A Soldier Story, actually, not Denzel Washington. But by the time we get to Training Day, almost 20 years later, 15 years later or so, Denzel Washington is a star. And in Hollywood, we're not accustomed to seeing our stars playing bad guys or morally ambiguous guys. They play good guys. And I think he got the Academy Award because he just played the bad guy so freaking well. I mean, he just, swaggered, and he was like kicking butts and shooting people and calling them dirty names. And, he was cheating on his wife and stealing money. And it's like, oh, wow, I didn't know Denzel could do all that. I thought he was a nice guy. No, Denzel was a bad boy, mean guy, mean. So that's why he got the Academy Award.
Yeah, don't let that shield fool you.
I think one thing about Training Day is there's a side of the coin that you hadn't seen before in movies, and you had, but it hadn't been as dominant as a breakout Denzel Washington good guy playing it, where you see cops that are on the opposite side of the law. Where they're dirty, they're trying to get theirs. It's not about serve and protect. It's about them being able to take the law into their own hands and not be held accountable for what they were doing. And I feel like this is a true story in a sense, that this was happening, and nobody up to this point had really majorly put it out there with an actor like Denzel. Ethan Hawke coming in to play the character that he was playing, where he was having doubts in his own head about the kind of cop he wanted to be, and you see at the end of the movie where Ethan is just, he decides which side he wants to be on.
Yeah, and one thing, I think those are all really good points, Steve, because especially like today, I mean, it's 2016, and we're having a crisis of conscience about the role of police in this country. Are they good guys? Are they bad guys? Maybe most of them are good, but how do we hold accountable, or do we ever hold accountable? Is it possible to hold accountable those relatively few bad apples who, steal money, bend the rules, or worse yet, take lives? How do we, or is it too dangerous for us to hold them accountable as a society? Does that mean that society, becomes even more subject to anarchy because we're holding these cops accountable? So we can't trust the cops. We know we can't trust the crooks, but now we can't trust the cops. So who do we look to? So Training Day kind of resonates because you've got, it's sort of like what happens if you got this cop. I mean, probably Denzel Washington's character, if he was going to do his backstory, Denzel Washington's character, when he was a trainee like Ethan Hawke, first Undercover, he probably tried to do the right thing. He probably wasn't trying to steal. He was probably trying to put the bad guys in jail. And after all these years of being in South LA and dealing with the drugs and the money and trying to scrape by on a cop's salary while the bad guys literally laugh all the way into jail, out of jail, and on the way to the bank, he just said, screw it, I'm giving up and I'm getting mine. I'm just gonna go in and get mine. If I happen to take down a few bad guys along the way, that's great. I'll do it if it's convenient. But in the meantime, I'm on a hustle. And Ethan Hawke is like, I want to be a good cop. I mean, the first day he's like, well, he's like a puppy dog practically. Oh, I can't wait to learn how to be a good cop. This is awesome. And Denzel Washington's like, don't make me kill you. You're just like,
right.
Correct.
Please don't come in here with that, like, so incredible, adorable, like enthusiasm for the job, because you're about to get massacred. So, that's what, and then he shows them exactly how bad things are. But of course, what is apparent in the movie is that things are so bad because Denzel Washington's character is helping to make them that bad, and
right.
things are extremely skewed because Denzel Washington's, as Alonzo Harris, that detective's perspective is way skewed. It's degenerate. It's, it's bankrupt. So of course he's going to see things in a particular light. So, it's really interesting. And I jumped up and down. I remember watching the Academy Awards in 2001, and I was jumping up and down when Denzel Washington got his, but I kept saying all the while, I'm glad he got it in 2001. He should have gotten it in 1992 when Malcolm X came out. That was the movie he should have won it for. But he got robbed that year, so they made it up to him a few years later. It happens all. I mean, look at poor Paul Newman. He never got an Academy Award until The Color of Money. What a piece of crap movie that was. It's like, how did that even rise to the level? You people, you Academy Award winners. No, they gave it to him because it's like, well, crap, we didn't give it to him for The Verdict. We didn't give it to him for HUD. We didn't give him for Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. There's so many roles.
Movies, right.
Paris Blues. So many movies they could have given it to him for, and he really should have gotten it for The Verdict. Oh my God, that was robbery of massive proportions. So they gave it to him for The Color of Money. They gave it to him for The Color of Money, and I'm like, are you kidding me, people? But whatever.
Yeah, the Verdict was stellar. I really enjoyed that film.
Love, one of my all-time favorite movies.
So I want to. Oh, go ahead.
But we're here. But Training Day is also, it's really riveting. I guess it keeps your attention. Denzel Washington. I mean, it's worthwhile just to watch Denzel Washington swagger, and even though Ethan Hawke is sort of like, being swept along by events, there's a real good camaraderie or chemistry between them, which really helps ground the movie. And you see that chemistry play out again in the remake of The Magnificent Seven, where they both appear again with the same director because Antoine Fuqua directed both films.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he did. Well, going off of Ethan Hawke again, I think Ethan Hawke's one of those actors that's slightly underrated. I think he's a little bit better than people give him credit. But staying within the realms of the theme that we're talking about here, with the police undercover, here was a film that I thought was a pretty decent film. Maybe not as good as some of the others that we talked about, but still within the realms of the theme, a really decent film, and Ethan Hawke is in it also. But now enter in Don Cheadle and Wesley Snipes and Richard Gere. In this film, Brooklyn's Finest. Now, in this film, we have 3 different police officers getting swept into working at different parts of the department, but being swept into the same circumstance because of different people that lead them into the same circumstance and getting in each other's way. Don Cheadle is the primary undercover cop who is undercover in one of the major gangs in Brooklyn. And so he's gotten in so undercover that he's almost like the right-hand man to the main crook who's just about to get out of prison. And he's going to be, they're waiting for him to come out of prison to take his rightful place as the leader of this major gang, and that's Wesley Snipes' character. And then we have Ethan Hawke, another policeman on another realm. He's a dirty cop. He's kind of in that mode where he's in the middle now, almost like at the end of Training Day. Now he's got to make decisions. Well, he's making some right decisions, some wrong decisions in this film, and it puts him in the path of Don Cheadle's character. And then Richard Gere, here's another cop in that mix of emotion, mix of situation, being drawn into the same circle of crime that links these policemen together that would not have been linked together otherwise. And the way this movie plays out, you don't really see some of the things coming. And that's what makes this movie really pretty good. I think overall, you have those moments where it gets a little slow, trying to build too much of the individual character, trying to build so that you get a better understanding of the character. This could have actually been two different movies, but they pulled it all into one movie, and so it gets a little clunky at times, but then the latter part of the movie really picks up, and that's where you get the essence and the best part of this film. But since we were talking about Ethan Hawke, I thought I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this movie, Brooklyn's Finest. And I really like Don Cheadle in this. I like Richard Gere in this, but Ethan Hawke's character is one of those characters that you kind of feel for because he's so conflicted.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I like
yeah,
this.
He plays those characters well, the conflicted ones. And I think you're right. He is kind of, he's not too underrated because people in the industry certainly know how good Ethan Hawke is. It's not like the man has as much work as he wants. So the people in the industry know, but in terms of like, there was like a bright, brief and shining moment where he was going to be like the A-list star. And then it just sort of, I think he opted to sort of do, right. But I think it's because he opted not to go for the star-making roles, to stop doing that and to go for roles that actually spoke to him and to work only with people that he wanted to work with. He likes Antoine Fuqua. He's been in more than one movie. You don't do that unless you like the person. You might get stuck with the director once, but it only happens once. After that, you avoid them at all costs if you don't like them. So, they have a good working relationship, and he and Denzel Washington have a good working relationship. So you can tell.
Going to that point, do you know who directed Brooklyn's Finest?
Antoine Fuqua.
Well, there you go. That's 3 films for him. 3.
Yep.
So, very, very interesting.
Ding, ding, ding. We hit the trifecta. The Fuqua trifecta.
Yes, we did.
It's the hat trick.
It's a hat trick.
And as you can see, Antoine Fuqua is making some bucks because he's directing some stuff. And movies that are getting really good ratings all across the board by a lot of the film critics that have critiqued them over time, and including us too, because these are the films that we're mentioning to our audience too. So yeah, definitely worth watching, worth seeing. How about you, Steve? Anything else in your repertoire of really cool movies to watch? Since you don't pick a bad one, let's show that to our audience and give us a pick.
We've kind of strayed away from comedy a little bit. Training Day has kind of got its own brand of comedy in it. So,
if you like blood and guts.
Well, he makes a couple jokes. But the one that I'm going with, there's 2. It's 21 Jump Street.
That was a comedy?
That was? Ha, 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 ha. Yes, it was.
The film version, not the TV version.
Yeah, not the TV show. Oh, we're talking about movies.
Yes. I think the question still stands, but whatever.
With these two gentlemen,
Yeah, Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill. They both are police officers that have a younger look. So they go undercover, being that they screwed up, messed up their police duties while on the force. So they get to go undercover to kind of get them away from actually being out there in the open for people to see, because they kind of give cops a bad name. So they end up getting put in high school by their commanding officer at this time, which is actually played by Ice Cube, which Ice Cube's relationship with the both of them is hilarious because he wants to hurt them more than he wants to help them. And they go into this high school. Channing Tatum was always the jock, Jonah Hill was always the nerd, and they kind of go right into, they flip flop their respective positions. Actually, Channing Tatum ends up playing the nerd a little bit in the school, and finds out how hard it is to be a nerd in the school, and then Jonah Hill ends up playing the jock for some weird set of circumstance. And they get into all sorts of hijinks and high school craziness, and they're searching for drugs that are being dealt in the school. Turns out by one of the teachers, principal, I can't remember off the top of my head. And they end up saving the day and getting
another movie,
getting good recognition.
Yeah,
and another movie,
Jump Street,
which is 22 Jump Street, which is actually right across the street from 21 Jump Street.
Well, I was going to mention that to you.
Well, you got to jump from 21 and jump over across the street to 22.
Right.
Mm.
And then they jump from high school to college in the second movie.
Wow.
Yeah, but the premise really comes from the TV show 21 Jump Street, because that was the premise. Young police officers who looked almost like they were teenagers.
Which Johnny Depp and his
guess who I was going to say? Guess who's in the TV show? Johnny Depp.
Yeah, Johnny Depp.
Holly Robinson Peete.
And Johnny Depp and his partner actually make a cameo in 21 Jump Street.
Or 22 Jump Street.
Oh, cool.
No, they make it in 21 Jump Street.
Who?
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp
and,
does.
His partner from 21 Jump Street.
And make it into the movie 22 Jump Street.
No, they were in 21 Jump Street.
Don't pay no attention to him. He's yanking your chain.
Oh.
Somebody's doing some thinning around here.
Yes. It's extremely thinning.
That's too funny. Okay. So this particular film with Channing Tatum and
Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill. So on a scale from 1 to 10, what would you rate this movie? Steve?
I'd give it, as a comedy, it's great. I'd easily give it probably a 7 or 8 out of 10. As a comedy, as a cop movie, it's pretty out there.
Okay, Sandra.
But,
define out there.
It has a lot of the elements of being a police movie, but it's just they sometimes go, wow, that can't happen, or just some of the things that they do are just completely outrageous. But it's still undercover police officers doing their job to bring down crime and save their fellow classmates in this case.
And that's comedy.
That is comedy. That's comedy. I mean, and that's the thing. There's a lot of things going on out there that it's staunch this, staunch that, but even comedic elements can bring you to still understanding that undercover essence. So this is definitely some good filmmaking, and especially in the comedy mode of Undercover. it reminds me of how funny, television would take things like in Get Smart, for example. We see Double O 007, in Light Flint, these very serious, very dramatic roles. And then you see, was it Don Knotts, I think? No, yeah.
No, Don Adams.
Don Adams, thank you. Don Adams playing this secret agent, very straight-faced, never flinching, but yet so ridiculously silly. So yeah, and I think there's a new movie coming out called Keeping Up with the Joneses, where
Yes.
the next door neighbors are just your neighbors and everything. They're undercover, either spies or agents or something in that movie. And so that's a comedic film that's coming out soon, I think, on the silver screen. So I've got another film here real quick that I came across. I have only seen the trailers for it, but it looks really interesting, and it has two really good actors in it. That one who just seems like his star keeps rising, even though he's been in the industry for years, but his star keeps rising. And that's Bryan Cranston, and he was nominated for an Academy Award last year. And then one of my favorite actors in film, who I've never seen he even thought of for an Academy Award, but yeah, every film he's in, he's that guy that helps really elevate the film, and that's John Leguizamo.
Oh, John Leguizamo. Yeah.
The Pest.
One of my favorite actors, and yet doesn't have. I think he has a lot of star power. I think he's a very interpretive actor, and I think he really looks like, from the trailers that I've seen for this particular film, look like it's going to be a really good film. So this is one I really want to see, and so I urge people out there to give it a try. This particular film is called The Infiltrator. So even in the title, there's undercover going on. And this is basically a U.S. custom agent goes undercover. He finds out about a laundering scheme that involves the Colombian drug lord Pablo Escobar. So this is based off of real life, true story events. And I just know Bryan Cranston has been, like I said, his star is on the rise. And the films that he's been in recently have, and of course the TV series Breaking Bad, a lot of people will know him from that as the school teacher turned drug chemist in the series that, I think it went to 5 or 6 seasons.
Yes.
So we're talking about a really, really good actor here. And this movie looks like it's going to be nothing less than stellar.
Interesting.
So this is just the one I wanted to throw in there to try to see if we can get people to go out there and see and give us their opinion. Let us know if they like this film. And I do the same for you guys. If you think you like the film, let me know, and maybe we can go in depth a little bit more on maybe Bryan Cranston as one of our themes, or even John Leguizamo as one of our themes down the road.
Or maybe even Antoine Fuqua.
Yeah, even the director Antoine Fuqua. He seems like he's doing some really good work out there. So yeah, just wanted to throw that one out there. So you guys have any other films that you think would be interesting to our viewers? Because I have another one to throw out there if you're not ready to.
Throw yours out there.
Okay, this is a film that came out back in the early 90s. And it was a film where, when you look at the premise of the film and you look and see what's going on in the film, you don't realize that necessarily that there is an undercover police officer involved in this particular film. And what happens within the realms of, camaraderie. Well, there's a cool thing about camaraderie and things that you do together. But then it also comes down to the fact of there's times within the realms of that camaraderie where someone wants to be the alpha dog, someone wants to be the main person, and has the ideas, or is the smart one, or is the bravest one, or on and on and on. Well, this movie is about a jewelry heist that goes wrong. And the guys who survived the situation, now they're all second guessing each other. And that's when we find out there's something else going on within the realms of this camaraderie that wasn't quite what any of them expected. Now, the name of this movie is Reservoir Dogs. Came out in 1992. This is a great film. And, there are people out there who really, really love this director, and people out there who really think this director is so over the top that he's just crazy in his mind. Well, yeah, all of that is very true about this director, but there's a lot of his films that seem to have risen above the over-the-top essence to be, if not fan favorites, cult favorites. Well, I guess that's still fan favorites, but even some of them to be cult films, like one of his movies, which is Pulp Fiction. I'm talking about Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino directed Reservoir Dogs, and this is a really, really good film. And the element of this film that makes it even more tragic is that there's an undercover cop in the realms of this group of jewelry thieves. And that's one of the things that puts a knot and messes up this circumstance for this film and the different participants in this film. So this is one, if you haven't seen it, you've got to see this film.
It's gotten very good reviews. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one. And
what Steve said.
Yeah. And there's a lot of really good actors in it. Harvey Keitel is in this, Tim Roth, Michael Madsen. I'm a big Michael Madsen fan.
Steve Buscemi.
I like the coolness of him. In fact, Michael Madsen is in one of Tarantino's more recent films, which is The Hateful Eight. And Chris Penn is in this, who's another one of those tragic situations that's left too soon. I think even he was starting to develop as an actor in certain films. So yeah, this is Reservoir Dogs is one to watch. Okay, I'm sorry, you guys. I wasn't trying to hog everything. Anything out there for you guys wanted to mention before we get out of here?
I'd like.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Go ahead, Steve.
No. You go ahead. Ladies first.
Karen?
Oh, that's me. Okay. I want to bring up something from the glory days of Hollywood that dealt with an undercover cop. It's a movie called Pushover. Fred MacMurray, Kim Novak, Philip Carey, Dorothy Malone are all in the cast. And the movie came out in 1954. And it was, billed, you had like Fred MacMurray, who in my opinion was like, he was so hot. Especially in the 40s, probably not quite as hot in the 50s, but in the 40s he was awesome. And during a good chunk of his career, he actually was a matinee idol type. And then that all changed when he did a film called Double Indemnity with Barbara Stanwyck.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Where he was just like this really sleazy guy who, was on the make, and, every other word out of his mouth was baby. Well, baby, if you think I need the money that badly, you're right, baby, because that's how I roll, baby. It's like, but somehow the way he did it was all good. And so I think what happened was that because the studio system was still in very much in control of things, I think some suit decided that Double Indemnity was so good that we need to do it all again, but just not with Barbara Stanwyck, with Kim Novak. And keep Fred MacMurray, but instead of Edward G. Robinson, let's have Philip Carey. And, let's just do it that way. So to me, Pushover is kind of Double Indemnity light.
Double Indemnity light.
Yeah, that's how it reads to me. It's just, it so wanted to be Double Indemnity. And I remember watching this movie and going, I'm strangely unsatisfied. And I love Kim Novak as an actress. I have no problems with Dorothy Malone, have been a fan of Fred MacMurray for ages. And still, I just felt strangely like, I feel like I should have just watched Double Indemnity. But basically, what's going on here is that you have this bank heist, and the girlfriend of one of the robbers meets up with Fred McMurray's character, has this has this affair. I'm guessing they went to bed, but who knows? And then she finds out that Fred McMurray's a cop. Oh, so the jig is up. And so she tries to corrupt him, and he just falls for it hook, line, sinker. Hence the name of the movie, Pushover. So Paul's trying to get his hands on the money, but he gets caught up in the stakeout, and everything just goes to crap. So anyway, that's Pushover. I don't think it was a great movie, but it's a fun movie. And at this point, I would definitely call it a campy movie. Very campy.
Yeah, this must be Kim Novak, a little bit younger. I've seen her in other movies with, I think, what is it, Vertigo? I think she's in with Jimmy Stewart, and
yes.
So yeah, this is a young Kim Novak, and I guess a still relatively
not nearly as young Fred McMurray.
Yeah, I was going to say still relatively young Fred McMurray, but a little bit older.
He's well into his 40s at this point.
Yeah, but still the cool guy. Very far removed from My Three Sons, where he plays more of the lawyer-esque, not even that, businessman-esque guy who smokes a pipe and raises 3 kids.
Right.
Type of guy.
Well, there's a funny, you should mention, there's a funny story about that, because Fred McMurray, was a very conservative guy in his personal life, straight Republican ticket, very, he invested all of his money that he made from acting in all the right ways. He made a pile of money from his money. It's like somebody gave him the playbook for the American dream, and he followed it hook, line, and sinker. So that was Fred McMurray. But a few years after Pushover, he was in a movie called The Apartment with Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon.
That's right.
And Shirley MacLaine. And, this movie is a relatively adult movie, right? And it's basically about this apartment that's being kept by this corporation for like their good time girls. And Shirley MacLaine gets caught up in as one of the good time girls. So true story, Fred McMurray is, I don't know, I think he's in Disneyland or somewhere out in California. And he runs into this woman who's a fan, doesn't know her, but she's a fan, and she's just, telling him how much she enjoys his work, but she's like, but I'm really mad at you because you were in that movie, The Apartment, that awful, awful movie. I can't take my children to see that movie. That's terrible. How could you do that? So he said, after that conversation, I will only do family movies from now on. I will never star or take part in a movie that I couldn't take my own children to see. And that's what made him a Disney darling. And that's what sent him to My Three Sons. And that's all she wrote. So
that's sad because I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interject, but you and I know him to be in one of our favorite films that you and I love, with another one of your film idols in Humphrey Bogart and the Cane Mutiny.
So, God, love that movie.
And he just has such a pivotal role in that film, and for him to go from that cool essence that he had, i.e. like in Double Indemnity, i.e. like in the Cane Mutiny, to just being the very Disney flubber kind of.
Right,
kind of
the
guy,
absent-minded professor,
that kind of thing.
The pop.
And and that's just sad countenance to me, because he was such a good dramatics, and he had such cool lines, and he delivered those lines so well in those films prior to the Disney time. So.
Well, that was, I think his reaction was a little whacked of center anyway, because I'm like, you having this conversation with this woman who's like basically yelping at you because she can't take her kids to see the apartment, who said that was a movie for children. That movie was never targeted to children. It was an adult movie to begin with. What business do you have, if you're so worried about family values, taking your child to see a movie that is plainly for adults to begin with? So she's disappointed that she can't take her children to see this movie. She shouldn't have been taking her children to see that movie. Right. So why would he listen to her? Plainly, the woman's an idiot. Why would he listen to her and just completely change the trajectory of his career because of one conversation?
Maybe not an idiot so much. She's just voicing her opinion. She's just voicing her opinion. But here's where the idiocracy comes in. Why one person out of the millions of people who watch The Apartment, and i.e. shouldn't be taking their children to see this kind of film anyway, but why out of only one person, from what he's expressing as occurred and what happened to him, the true terrible essence here is McMurray in the first place. Why change your whole motif because of what one person says? Now I get that, you still want to have the fan, you still want to have your fans, and still want to be able to portray the best characters you can if that's what you as an actor is or an artist is. But at the same time, you want to give us a plethora of your capabilities and abilities, and not just give us one style, one type of genre from here on in. That limits you, I think. So the true person here who's really not thinking things through was Frederick Murray.
Right. Yeah. And I think the only thing I can surmise is that on a number of levels, he must have been uncomfortable with the roles he was playing. And so she pushed him to a direction he was headed towards anyway.
Yeah, the straw that broke the camel's back kind of thing.
Right, exactly.
So what about you, Steve? Do you have any other films out there that you think our viewing audience would be able to take advantage of and be able to get that true essence of the undercover police officer in action?
I have one. Other one, you would be a fan of it. You might have already seen it. It's called The Raid 2. I see you're laughing. You've seen it?
Well, here's the thing. This is going to really be sad. I apologize. I own both 1 and 2.
That's not sad.
And I haven't seen either one yet.
It took real courage to admit that.
I'm just saying because it was the subject matter, and Steve knows I love martial arts. So martial arts is very heavy into both of these films. But here's a situation where I saw the trailer, I read the back page of the DVD and thought, ooh, this looks good. This sounds good. And again, this is one of those films that has more of a cult following than it was a media darling. The media wasn't very high on this. The press wasn't very high on this. So, mostly it's people just finding this film or word of mouth that gets this film out there. But from all accounts that I've heard, all accounts that I've read, and all accounts that I've seen in the trailers, this is a stellar movie. And this is one of those films where when they made the first one, it was so good that it looked like they should make another one. And so, as you're saying, Steve, the second movie was really good. So why don't you give us an idea of what that's about?
The first movie is about a cop that goes with this group of people, and they're going into a building to basically vacate the drug lord that sits at the top of it, who has ties to the internal police unions and stuff like that, and is basically directing traffic away from. The second movie is this cop that escaped this complex where the crime lord is actually captured, is going to be killed, it seems like, but is not. he is asked to go undercover in order to find some people who are the cops that are being used by these drug lords, by undercover people. And he has to get in with one of the families. In order to do that, he goes to prison, like basically forsakes his life. He has a wife, he has a child. He forsakes his life to do his police duty. He goes undercover into a prison, ends up rescuing the son of one of the crime bosses, and that's how he kind of gets in with the family. He serves the sentence. The son comes, bails him out, and basically gets his dad to offer him a job. He's a expert. The movie is an Indonesian film. The martial art in it is, I don't know how to say the first part. I think it's Patak, but Salat. It uses mostly elbows, knees, strikes like that. And it's very close quarters. It's very battle-wise, you would say it's a very intimate setting in the carnage that the movie really has.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of Thai fighting.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. Which that's also kind of around that area, and moved into that area. But he goes and he infiltrates, and then he figures out a person who earlier in the movie you saw killed his brother.
Oh, God.
And then he's just working his way to these people and trying to figure out. And he gets deeper, and he does a couple things that he shouldn't, but he still remains a police officer. He still remains loyal to being a cop. He even saves or attempts to save a cop at one point who's basically trying to arrest him for doing his job. And every time he tries to get out, they just keep pushing him deeper and deeper in until finally he goes through and he wrecks shop, to put it lightly.
Yeah,
But,
and you knew he had that capability from the first movie.
Oh yeah, and he's got you see it a little bit, but he's got a dark side to him. He's kind of, you see in the first one, him and his brother, he became a cop. His brother went the way of being a crime guy, a drug person, and but he himself has a little bit of a darker tone to himself, and you kind of really see that in this movie because his surroundings are bringing it out of him.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to taking the time at some time, especially even more so now, to looking at both films. I'll probably try to do it as a binge moment.
The fight scenes, the fight scenes are just as good, if not better, than the first one.
Oh, very good. All right, cool. Yeah, because I noticed you jumped to the second one right away as opposed to the first one. So
Undercover.
Right. Indeed. So yeah, that seemed like that was going to be pretty good to me too. So any other films out there? We don't have to necessarily dwell so heavily on a particular film, but any other films out there we think, now there's Karen, you had gone back into like the 1950s, I guess, with Fred McMurray. There's a film that's even earlier, that's an undercover film, that stars James Cagney. And this film came out in 1959, so it's just a little bit earlier than the Fred McMurray piece. And it's called White Heat. It's kind of a psychological thriller. And we have an undercover element here having to do with a payroll heist from a chemical plant company. I was trying to think of another film now here's a film that back in the time when it came out got a lot of press because of the uniqueness of the film, and the undercover essence goes back and forth between i.e. just like in Steve's mention of the criminal element, you've got policemen going undercover to try to get into the drug lord situation, but also police going undercover to bring out the negativity in the police department itself. Well, there's a film that came out in 1997 called Face Off. And this movie stars John Travolta and Nicolas Cage. And the irony in this film is the criminal, in order to infiltrate the police department, changes his appearance, plastic surgery, to become this cop so that he can infiltrate his way into the police department, or actually in this case I think it's the FBI, and get into that situation there. And so in order to counteract that, that same police officer who he's imitating, or I should say he's taken the face of, he too goes under plastic surgery to become the criminal. And that's where this movie goes all crazy. And it's such a good twist of fate in this particular film that Face Off, I think, is, you know, a viable film out there that people should see because of that crazy, bizarre element, which, you know, it seems a little far-fetched, but I don't know. I've seen
not.
You
maybe
see,
not.
What'd you say?
I said maybe not.
Maybe not, because there have been people who've gone to plastic surgery just to get away from the police. So maybe not so far-fetched. But that's one of the unique situations in that one. It's undercover.
That was one crazy movie.
It was.
Nick
Now, there's one other film I was going to throw out.
His craziness.
Yeah, I was going to throw one other film out there, which came out recently, and we had a real big Oscar buzz back in 2013, 2014, and that's American Hustle.
That was on my list.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's another one with Christian Bale, who's one of my favorite actors out there these days, and also Amy Adams is one of my favorite. And I like Jennifer Lawrence too, and Bradley Cooper's in it. So this is a star-studded film, and even it's Robert De Niro's in this one too. So you got a lot of people in that film. And the last one I'm going to throw out here, and then I'll let you guys jump in as well, is Break Point. This is a film that actually has been remade recent past, but the one that I'm talking about is with Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze, where Keanu Reeves is undercover. So very good movie.
That's always been one of your favorite movies, and I never understood that. I saw Point Break, and I'm like, yawn.
It's a
Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, Keanu Reeves made me yawn.
Keanu Reeves' early films, it's just, back then I wasn't such a big Keanu Reeves fan. I was more of a Patrick Swayze fan.
Right.
Keanu Reeves recently has garnered my attention with John Wick. And John Wick 2 is coming out, so I'm thrilled with
so excited.
John Wick is stellar, right?
I'm so excited for John Wick 2.
Yeah, I am too. I can't wait for that. So
like watching the behind the scenes with him, where he goes through the actual training to be able to do the things that he's doing in that movie is very, very interesting. That he put in the time and the work to make it look real and be real, basically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guys, we're coming to that phase of the last couple minutes of the show. Can either of you just give me one more film, and then we're out of here?
You took my film.
Okay, so Karen's out.
The Departed.
No, that was the
one that I was
American Hustle. You took my film.
It from me.
Steve says The Departed. You took that one from him because that was his deal. So, all right.
One hand washes the other.
Yep, that's how it works.
Yeah, and that's okay. That's our camaraderie here. If one person doesn't get to mention, somebody else gets to. So that's very cool. All right. Well, thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to us, and we hope that we've given you a few films to look at that you'll be able to spend some time viewing, and definitely enjoyed all these films. So we hope that you will too. So thanks, Steve. Thanks, Karen. Thank you guys for hanging out with me here on A Real Point of View. And we'll try to come back with you next time. And this time, I think we're going to go Halloween-esque and bring you some interesting films having to do with a little creepy essence.
Ooh, scary.
And some sound effects too that might scare you.
I'm going to drink your blood.
Okay, well, thanks again, everybody. We wish you a wonderful weekend, and be safe out there. And definitely try to pick up a DVD, stream something, go to the library, get some older films. Like look up Fred McMurray, look up uh, uh, um, Paul
Kim
Walker.
Novak. Oh, Paul Walker. Yes.
Yeah, so just get out there and watch a film, everybody, and enjoy. And thanks again for listening to us here and watching us here on A Real Point of View. Good night, everybody.
Night.